Erin, welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, thank you.
I know you're in the middle of your season now, so I do appreciate you taking the time to discuss your athlete journey and what you do on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year basis. But before we jump into that main discussion, would you be so kind to give the listeners whatever information you feel necessary about yourself?
I would say I'm a middle distance runner from Glasgow, and I now live in Manchester and train with the M11 track group, and I mostly compete in the 800 and 1500s, like more so the 1500s recently, and I come from a triathlon background, so I did that until I was 19 whilst doing track, and then stopped the triathlon to just do track. So I think that's the summary.
So talk me through that journey, because most people do the 800, the 1500, a kind of running sport like you do now, and then transition into the likes of triathlon. You don't often see people going the other way. So talk me through, from a young age, have you always been sporty? What is it about running to where you are now?
Yeah, I was definitely like the sporty kids at primary school and then into high school. I did swimming from a young age, so I went straight from swimming lessons into swimming club when I was 9. So I think naturally, because I was training, like even if I was training swimming like 4 times a week, I'm going to be naturally fitter than most people. So then from that, I kind of got into cross country and just the classic, did a local cross country. There was someone from the running club there at the end that was like, you should join the running club, and that's what I did. And I joined Gifford North when I was 9. So, and I was going down to the club 2 or 3 times a week ever since then, and kept up the swimming, and then found this event called an aquathlon that was just swimming into running, which I didn't realise at first when I first turned up to it. I thought they were separate. Like I thought you got a break between the two. I didn't realise it was one straight into the other. So that was a bit of a shock when I was like 10. And then from that, Triathlon Scotland ran that event. Then that was kind of how I got into triathlon. And they've got a good pathway system in Scotland, so it's quite easy to kind of, there was squads and stuff, national squads you got put on from maybe like 13, 14. So it was quite easy to, structured really well. So I did a lot of that, but whilst I was doing that, I still did track. And then I kind of got to the age of 19 and I was doing both, but I felt like I was missing out on things in both of them. So I couldn't really do much speed work because I was so tired all the time from the training. So I was training like 20, 25 hours a week. Like it was a lot. And then I was missing out on things in triathlon. Like I couldn't cycle as much as the others because I had track sessions to do. So then I kind of reached a point where I thought I'm probably losing out on my potential in one because I'm doing the other one. And I think they can complement each other and they can work, but when you're doing 800, particularly even 1500, it's really hard because you need to be able to run fast. And I just found that so difficult when I was so tired from triathlon training. So it just felt like the right decision for me at the time. I was going to uni and I chose my uni kind of based on running or triathlon. So it wasn't like a forced decision. It's just something that felt like that was the right decision for me, I would say.
And 19 is quite a late age, especially when we think about you being a swimmer. Swimmer's an early specialisation sport. 19 is quite a late stage to make that decision of one or the other. And as you've said, triathlon, in my mind, from the outside looking in, does have a strong pathway. It's very good at getting people into the sport with less distance and just have a go at triathlons and everything else. What was it that really cemented that, no, I'm a track runner in your mind, rather than actually I've been doing this sport for a long time, I'm used to it, I know there's a lot of volume, I'm just going to keep going with that because I know that routine?
Yeah, it was. So the British triathlon, felt like I was kind of like, their pathway is really good as well. And because triathlon's not a huge sport, it is easy to, like, I definitely could have just followed that quite easily. But honestly, I just didn't love cycling, and cycling is just such a big part of it. I loved swimming. I obviously loved running, but the cycling just wasn't really it for me. And sometimes I'd be out on like a 3 hour cycle and just be like, oh my gosh, I just don't want to do this. So then I did enjoy it for the most part. It wasn't like I was forced to do that. It was a choice. But I didn't have the same love for it as I did for the swimming and the running. So I think that's probably more what it came down to. Whereas I think if I'd loved cycling, I would have kept going with the triathlon, but it just wasn't quite there for me, which I guess I did only start doing it kind of later. Like I swam and ran from when I was 9, and then only started properly going out for bike rides when I was probably like 15, 16. So maybe it's just because I didn't start at a very young age. I don't know, but it just felt like the right choice for me to do track.
It's funny you say that because triathlon obviously being 3 sports in one, most athletes recognise they don't have a strength in one of those. You're either a very good cyclist into a runner, or like you, a swimmer and a runner, or really good kind of swimmer, cyclist, not to go on the run. You obviously have an endurance background. It's probably a big part of your physiology. But again, what was it? Was it just, I'm just not good at cycling? Or was it, I know that part of me that doesn't enjoy the cycle is not going to get me to the next level, whereas actually I enjoy the track. I can see myself going much further on that journey if I choose the track. Was it one or the other, or was it just you thinking, actually, I complement the track better because I know I'm never going to commit to the 3-4 hours on the bike I need to?
If I'd done triathlon, like I would have just got on with it and I would have done the cycling, and it's not like I wasn't like particularly bad at it. I wasn't amazing at like bike handling and stuff compared to other people potentially, and it definitely was my weaker one compared to other two, but it wasn't weak enough to like hinder me in being able to like do well in triathlon. So I think it's probably, I guess, because I wanted to be a professional athlete, and I guess when you do that, because if I chose triathlon, I'd be cycling so much like every day and it'd be constant. So I guess if you start to not enjoy something, then that just becomes like disastrous pretty quick, or just like it would be so difficult to continue as a career if you didn't love something. And I just have so many good memories on the track as well, from when I was younger. So I think that's probably contributed to that decision.
Possibly a bit of a tough question, but let's put it out there. From a physical, psychological and socio-environmental aspect, what do you think, number one, makes you a good athlete, and number two, an athlete that's suited to those middle distance events? Because let's be honest, they are hard events.
Yeah, sometimes I'm like, why is this the events that I've decided to be good at? I don't know. But I think it's almost like my physiology. Like I do have an endurance background. I definitely, because I trained so many hours in the pool from a young age. So it's almost like my body's been trained in that way. But even in the pool, I'm definitely not a sprinter, not a long distance runner. I am just better at like 200 and 400, which is probably the equivalent to the 800 and the 1500. So I think I'm quite explosive just naturally. And my dad's played a lot of rugby when he was younger. And then I have the endurance from training. And I just think the combination of the two of those kind of makes you more primed for the middle distances. And I think probably emotionally I'm better when I enjoy something and feeling quite relaxed, because as soon as my relaxation goes, then it's like really difficult for me to perform. And I am quite a sociable person as well, so the training environment, like our group is really good, that we're all friends and actually get on, and I think that really helps bring me on as well.
Relaxation's not a word I would use with the middle distances that you do. And I certainly don't want to disparage your event, but I'm a wannabe track cyclist, so I understand this analogy. I just ride around in circles. You just run around in circles. So what is it about that psychology and that relaxation that you find in those sessions?
I think it probably depends on how your mind works. So I'm more prone to probably overthinking, overstressing, getting so nervous that it actually has a detrimental impact on my performance. So of course I need to be ready to go and hyped up, but I think because a lot of people are not prone to that, and then that's fine because then they don't have to try and calm themselves down, whereas I probably more am. So for me, being as relaxed as possible actually helps me, even though it seems like it shouldn't, if that makes sense.
And thinking about trying to find that flow state, relaxation, whatever term you want to use, because the events that you run are quite short in terms of that ability to react to something or make informed decisions, say if someone sets off quite quickly or it's a tactical race, do you practice those during your training sessions? Do you actively say, right, someone's going to push the pace really quickly and we're going to see how the others react? Or do you think about, if this happens, I need to kind of do this to lessen those overthinking moments within a race?
I think I more practice it just in races rather than in training, because in training I just think that could make it kind of difficult. We don't really do different scenarios in race practice and stuff. It's more just trying to get the best out of yourself physically as you can. So obviously that could be running behind someone and trying to keep up with them, and that could happen in a race situation as well. But I think this year it's more when I've been in races, I've been really trying to, because obviously it's not, as you said, it's not a long time at all. So you do need to be, like I'm saying, I need to be relaxed, but I also need to be very switched on about like what's happening in front of me. And it's like a relaxed flow state, but my eyes are still very much focused on everyone ahead of me. So I've been working on that this year, and I think I've been getting a lot better at it, and just not stressing if, say, someone goes off because I've got quite a good gauge of when I can push the pace within my physical limits as well, and what I can do to try and finish as high as possible. So I have been working on that this year.
Thinking about that and your post-race analysis, how much does that inform what you then do next? Because, sometimes we watch athletics and you see athletes that possibly didn't get it right in the moment. They're emotional. Sometimes the interview questions they get asked are not particularly kind, and understanding where that athlete is. So is post-race analysis something that you heavily focus on as a group or squad? Is that an individual thing? Is that a coach-athlete thing? Talk me through, did I get that race right? Did I not get that race right? What can I do better the next race?
Yeah, it's probably quite individual for me. Like I think back to what I did during it and where I was positioned, where I was putting in effort, and whether that resulted in a good performance or not. But I actually had quite a bad experience this year, but that's probably taught me quite a lot of lessons. At the start of July, I was going for the World Championships qualifying time, and I was in this really good race. It was crazy that I even managed to get into it because everyone was like very fast and out my depth. So what I probably should have done was just run at the back within my limits and then just try and pick off people on the last lap. The race was running a world record, so it was a really, really good one. But what actually happened was I went into it like, I have to run this time, and then just ran it very silly. Like I was in, it's kind of better in the 1500 if you like maintain the same pace rather than surging, slowing down. you want it to be as clean as possible. You don't want to collide with people, whereas I was surging, slowing down, running into people, clipping them, breaking my momentum, and then it got to about 20, I don't actually really remember it very well, like 10 metres before the line, and I started stumbling. And then what happened was, because I'd exerted myself too much throughout the race, I actually fell over before the finish line. So the end result, I'm like concussed myself. So the end result of that was I didn't run the World Championship time and I hit my head. So that was really not very good. But from that, I was able to reflect on it. And 2 weeks later, I had another race that was kind of a similar standard. So what I did was basically just went straight to the back and just tried to run within what I knew I could do, and the result was a lot better and I made it over the line. I did just miss the qualifying time by half a second, but it was a way better performance than 2 weeks ago when I fell before the line. So that was a hard lesson this year, but it's definitely taught me quite a lot.
And thinking about the group that you've talked about, anyone that's ever tried an 800 or 1500 understands the pain that you have to go through. Never mind some of the training sessions you do where it might be 10 times 200 at an even faster pace. What do you think, as a person, as a personality, as an athlete, you're bringing to that squad of athletes, that group, to make yourself and them better?
I think I'm probably just quite solid amongst them, or I'm good at like the hills, the longer stuff. I'm not the best at everything, but I think when we all come together, we have our different strengths and weaknesses. So if I'm doing a track session with Keely, I know that I can just probably run behind her. Definitely run behind her. And I'll get a lot out of myself while she's helping me. Whereas if we're doing something longer, I'm probably more likely to be ahead of her and I can help drag her along. So I think we probably all complement each other in different ways and use each other for different sessions to get the most out of ourselves.
Do you go into those sessions knowing that that's what you have to bring to the table, or has that been quite an organic process that these things have come out and you recognise your strengths and what you're bringing to the group?
It's probably been quite organic, to be honest, or just you kind of know what everyone is better at. Like, I'm probably better at hills than I am at anything else, which obviously if you're a track runner, it's not, so you'd rather it be the track. But I know that that's my strength, and I know that on the longer session I might need a bit more help because I'm not as strong as them. Whereas I don't know if anyone does this, but they might look at me and the hills and be like, oh, I can try and, or like we can run together. I don't know. But it's not really something we sit down and discuss in a way, but it just happens naturally.
Do you go into those sessions, say you've got a hill session tomorrow, do you go into those sessions knowing it is your strength, knowing that people within the group might be looking towards you or thinking, right, I know Erin's going to do really good in these first 3 reps, I need to be on her heels to push myself? Or are you just, no, I know what times I've got to be hitting, and if this is a strength of mine, then others can come with me. I'm not overly concerned about that.
Yeah, it probably is quite individual, or I wouldn't be thinking about anyone else if I was on the start line of a session. I think because we train so hard all the time, it means you can be kind of also prone to feeling not very good on a certain day and I just have no control over it. So it's not, especially through the winter, which is when we do like kind of 4 main sessions a week, it can be like someone can have a really good session on the Friday and then it comes to Saturday and they're just cooked, and something that they'd normally be good at, they're like going backwards. So I think because our group is so big, it's okay because there's so many people around you to kind of help you.
And talk me through those sessions then. I know you're in season at the minute, so that will look different to the winter you've just talked about, but I know there's no such thing as a normal week for athletes, but let's take the week coming up with this is a Friday, we're talking on, let's say from Monday in 48, 70, 72 hours time, what is your week going to look like in terms of the training sessions you're going to do?
Our main session days are Mondays, Wednesdays and Saturdays in the summer. So the session days could be a tempo session, so something like 5 by 5 minutes, and then do that in the morning, and then in the evening we'd normally top it up with another like half an hour, 40 minutes of either cross train, or for me I'd swim sometimes, or biking. So that was or we do a track session, so something like, I can't even think off the top of my head, like say 10 400s or something like that. And then same thing, we do a bit more CV in the evening, but on the days in between, so on a Tuesday and Thursday, we would do, say, on a Tuesday I would do a gym session that would take maybe an hour and a half, and it's just kind of like a mix, sometimes like squats, some arms, a bit of core. It's nothing, just kind of like hit everything. And then I'd do a longer run, let's say like 60 or 70 minutes. And then we'd be back to session day. And then same again on the Thursday, it was kind of be a gym session that takes about an hour and a half. And then kind of so maybe like a 40-minute run, and then another training in the evening that's just kind of, it's not a session, it's just kind of easy. So swimming or biking or something like that. And then we always have Sundays off. So that's our rest day of the week, which is a big change from triathlon, because in triathlon they feel like they don't know what rest days are, just like constant. Whereas in athletics, we always have one day. I always have one day off a week, but now I'm like, I need it. I don't know how I did it before. So yeah.
Athletics is a funny sport where, because your season arguably is very short, you're looking to hit times for World Championships, Olympics. You have to find a peak and try and maintain that, over, say, 4 Saturdays, or if it's a Diamond League meet or nationals or whatever. So what are you doing now during those sessions you've just talked about to monitor your volume and your intensity? Do you do your heart rate? So when you're doing your 5 minutes, is that heart rate based? Is that time based? Do you do kind of self-regulation measures beforehand to think, actually, yeah, my DOM is a little bit sore today, so I'm gonna drop that down to 4-5 minutes? How are you making sure that come race day that you are recovered properly, the speed is there?
Yeah, I think for me, I probably use self-regulation the most, or I use my heart rate from my Garmin wristwatch to kind of keep track of like how I'm feeling, or if I'm feeling anxious, it normally shows on my heart rate, I feel like. So then when I know when I'm if I feel like that, then I do need to be a bit more careful with the volume of training and not doing too much. So there's been a couple of times this summer where I've maybe missed something, like a 30-minute extra run in the evening, because I guess I've been doing this for 16 years now, so I do know my body quite well, and when it's tired and when it needs a bit more recovery. So I probably more use that, because for us, because the season is quite short, we're training the whole year to focus on 3 months of the year, basically. So getting the training in is probably more important than the other months of the year, and just maintaining what you've already done, I think, is more important through the summer. Because I've in my mind, I'm like, I've done all the hard work now, I just need to make it to the start line feeling good, and then I'm more likely to have a good result than trying to plough through the summer. So definitely try and pay more attention to recovery and not doing too much in the summer. But the rest of the year, you can do too much and it's okay, I would say.
But how hard is that? Athletics is a very objective sport. I run this fast, I throw this far. Where a team sport, rugby, football, I could say, yeah, Erin, I think you had a really good game. There is objective data there in terms of passing stats, running stats, and everything else. But there is subjectivity there, and knowing that actually in 2 days' time or a week's time, I get another chance. Where for someone like yourself, if you're looking for a qualifying time, you need to hit that time to then possibly get to an Olympics or World Championships or National Championships. You talk there about just maintaining during your season, but how hard is that when your sport is so objective? And it needs to be, oh, I was half a second out there, I was a second out there from that time I really want. I need to hit training next week, I need to push a little bit harder, rather than think, actually, no, trust the process and just let this happen and go from there. How patient, how do you work that psychology of knowing my sport is objective? I know I've done the hard work and not rush or push during the season.
Yeah, you're right. Athletics is hard because it's objective, like from a psychological perspective. Because also, a lot of the time when you're a sports person, your self-worth and your self-esteem is kind of intertwined with your race results. So then for us, it's like, oh, this person's, or I'm a 1:59 runner, then that can become kind of, oh, but I've just ran 2:02. So then that can kind of play on your mind a little bit. And I definitely think I've made the mistake in past years of thinking too much about that and almost like not trusting the process and that it's all going to come together in the end. But I think this year I've been really good at just kind of knowing that if I keep doing race after race, doing everything right in between, then eventually it will click. But that's something I've definitely had to work on, or that's not came very naturally to me. So, but normally as our training goes across the season as well, so right now everything's kind of like cutting down, so you do start to feel, because we're kind of into the last few weeks of the season anyway, so you do start to feel better physically anyway, and like just a bit more fresh and more ready to go, and you almost don't need the endurance as much as you do at the start of the summer to try and get you through.
And when you think about those races and trying to be objective, are you looking at purely the end product, a 1:59, or are you looking at 100, 200, 400 splits to say, actually, I started really well, I was strong in the start, and then I tailed off, or actually my start was slow, I finished really strong, so this is where the work needs to come in? Or again, is that just a no, just trust the process, the races will teach you, and you just need to go out knowing that this is what I'm going to do?
I think I'll probably initially go off the result and then be like, how did I get there? What, like I did an 800 a couple days ago, and I managed to run 1:59, which is the fastest I've done all year. But there were parts of it that weren't very good that I could kind of reflect on. And I know my split kind of at 400 was a bit slower than I normally would be. But then in my head, I'm like, is that a better way for me to run it? I don't really know. I need to kind of try out more ways. But there's definitely, so for me in the past, when I started doing the 800 more last year, my start was definitely quite a big problem because I'm 1500 runner, so I'm just like not very fast. Also, like even though I'm like, oh, I'm explosive, I'm like, well, I'm not compared to people that are 400, 800 runners. Like I am an 800, 1500 runner. So things like that, I could definitely, there's times when I've just said to Trevor, I was like, can you just watch me do a race start and just kind of point that, well, Trevor's my coach, just kind of give me some pointers to try and help me out, and things like that have definitely helped me a lot in the past. But I think probably like if I did a race and felt like my finish wasn't very good or something, and it's kind of early on in the season, then I'm just kind of trusting that by the time the races go on, like generally you get better as they go on, that by the end of the year I'm going to be feeling a lot better. And it would maybe change training a little bit, but not massively, probably more from like a technical perspective on, oh, I need to work on my start, like, can you watch me do this and then try and help me out.
And how are you then basing the decisions of whether it's an 800 or a 1500 that you run at that meet? Is that planned out before? What happens halfway through the season where you're nailing the 1500? Do you think, actually, I'm going to stay with that distance? Because, as you've said to me, an 800 and a 1500, yes, most people run both of those races as a middle distance runner. I would see them as two distinct events. There's a different strategy and physiology, I think, between 800 and the 1500. So how are you coming up with, actually, this week I'm going to run the 800, next week or next meet I'm doing the 1500? Is it just based on that race form? Is it based on a strategy of these 3 weeks at the end of summer that are towards a World Championship and Olympics and National Championships? Or is it based on feel? Actually, I'm nailing the 800 at the minute. That's what I'm going to enter for the next 2 or 3 meets.
Yeah, I think athletics is quite a almost complicated one in that way, because race, like all the Diamond League meetings and stuff like that, like they're actually really hard to get into unless you're ranked top 10 in the world. So for me this year, coming into the season, it was really difficult for me to get into any 1500s because I did one last year, so I didn't have a very good recent time that would help me get into anything. So I kind of needed to take, there's different levels. So you get like Diamond Leagues, then gold meetings, silver meetings, and bronze meetings. And depending on how fast you are, what your world ranking is, that kind of enables you to get into. So I could definitely get into like a silver and a bronze, and maybe now a gold, but I'm on like the waiting list for Diamond League, so I could find out about that a couple of days before it and things like that. So until you're the top 10, 15 in the world, it is actually quite hard to plan what you're actually doing. But there are a lot of athletics meets that you can get into, like as alternatives. So I often have an A, a B, and a C plan to kind of make sure I'm hitting the right number of races and between each event. And I think in choosing between the 800s and the 1500s in my next few events, like if I was doing really well in one, that's kind of what happened this year. I started off my season doing 800s and they weren't going amazing, and then I decided to do a 1500 to kind of change it up. No pressure, I'm not a 1500 runner, but then it actually went really well. So then from that I was able to get into more Diamond Leagues and more bigger meetings. So it just kind of, a lot of it depends on where the momentum is for you, I feel like. And mine this year has been in the 1500 rather than the 800. So that's what I've been focused on. But at the start of the year, when I was talking with my coaches, it was like, oh yeah, what 800s are we doing this year? And then it kind of took a bit of a turn at the end of May. So yeah, I guess it depends on your physiology and what you're better at, but it can change between the two depending on, I don't know. I guess when you get a bit older, your endurance gets a bit better as well. So maybe that's helped me.
And thinking about that planning, what is it about your environment that's giving you that perception that you can get these times, that you can get those places in the Diamond League? Are you actively looking at performances and times and structuring, well, actually, Erin, I think, in 3 weeks' time we need to be hitting these times, or thinking about what you did last year, that would have put you in this position if you'd went in that Diamond League. What is it about your environment that's giving you that perception, that influence, that you can get those external outcomes that you're looking for?
I think probably a lot of the training sessions we do are similar throughout, or they're the same throughout the year, so you can directly compare times if you wanted to. And we have a few more sessions that are a bit more like, say, predictor sessions. So for an 800 we do a session, it's like 400, 30 seconds rest, and then 400, which is pretty accurate to what you can run for, and it's horrible but it's quite accurate to what you can run for an 800 because the rest actually hinders you in a way because you need to get off the line again. So we do things like that, and I guess the people around me as well. So if I'm say if I'm around people that are running 159, 157, 201, then I'm like, I know I'm going to be in that, most likely going to be in that range somewhere. And people train differently in race. Some people are good trainers, not as good racers. Some people are good racers, not as good in training. So it's quite individual in that way as well. But you can definitely get a gauge of where you are compared to other people as to where you could perform in a race.
And you've talked there about people within that group. Is that something that you're actively doing? You're looking at people in that group and using their experience of they went to a Diamond League, they ran this time. You're seeing them on a day-to-day basis. You're gauging yourself with your own times and where you are within that group, if you're keeping up with them, etc. Is that something you actively reflect upon or use as a group to say, look, this athlete is doing this, we're all in this group, we can all aspire to that performance as well?
Yeah, I think so, but maybe not in a as clear-cut or intense way. So I know I could look at everyone's times if I wanted to, but I actually think in the past that's almost kind of not helped me because what is it they say, like, comparison is the thief of joy. So like if I have a bad session and then go and look at the training times compared to everyone else, I'm like in the years gone by, I'd be like, oh my goodness, I'm never going to be able to run that. Like I'd almost look at it in quite a negative way rather than a positive way. And then even if a session's gone well for me compared to other people in the group, and then I come to a race and I don't run the time that this session predicts, like I would also take that quite badly as well. So then for me, there's not necessarily a massive positive to looking at individual sessions and things like that. Like I'd probably more go off, oh, I was running with this person, I think that means I'm in good shape and I'll just do the best I can on the race day, because I've just found that because athletics is so objective, you can get in your head about things quite easily. So then I think it's easier for me if I just like don't do that and then just again trust the process that I'm fit and I'm gonna run well.
Trust the process is a statement athletes, coaches throughout there, and I understand why they do, because maybe the questions I'm asking are not very good, or generally media interviews are looking for platitudes, they're looking for a gotcha moment. So what does trust the process mean to you as an athlete?
Yes, for me, I've just trusted that I'm naturally quite talented, that I work hard and that I'm doing training that will bring out the best in me. And then for me, if I believe those three things, then and trust in them, then I know I'm gonna perform well. And I suppose in the group that I'm in, especially the women are just doing so well. So it's almost like there's proof there that the process we're going through does work. And if you just stick at it, you will get good results. But then, of course, if you're not doing well, I can see how it was really hard to trust the process, because it's like, this process is not working for me? Like, what's going on? But luckily, I've managed, I think I've PB'd like every year, maybe except I didn't have such a good year in 2019, but I've kind of lucky that I've been on this upwards trajectory. So it makes it a bit easier, I guess, to trust that you're just getting better and better and that you're doing the right thing for you.
You talked about relaxation or trying to feel relaxed when you're running, and they're trying to compare against sessions or think, oh, that was a really good session, so it must put me in this place. Are you using any other mind scenarios or psychology where you use visualization as you go into a race to think, actually, I've seen myself do this, I know I can do this? Or, do you need verbal persuasion? Do you need your coaches to be kind of impact talking you through that before pre-race? How are you getting to a race? And yes, I know you've said comparison is the thief of joy, and not overthink about the last session you had where you hit times or you didn't hit times. What else has given you that drive on the start line to think, this is the only race I need to think about? I don't have to think about the session 2 days ago. I don't need to think about the Diamond League meet in a week's time. What are you doing psychology-wise or socio-environmental-wise to be mindful, to be present, to not allow that overthinking to occur?
I think probably in the lead up to it. So recently I had, I was talking about running the World Championships qualifying time. I did the 1500 on the 12th of August, and that was my last chance to run it. So I hadn't ran it. I knew it was my last chance. Like, that's a really high pressure situation to be in. But genuinely, it was like every time that thought popped into my mind, I was just like, no, just don't even sit and think about that. That's just like, what's going to happen is you're going to fly to this race, you're going to go there, you're going to warm up, and you're going to be on the start line, and you just need to run a clean race. Like, there's so many things out of your control, like if I fall over, if I get tripped up, and then that could impact, and that could mean I don't run the time. And I think it's kind of learning to be okay with that, and like okay with potentially not meeting your goal, even though it's so hard. And I think probably in the lead up to that race, I was just thinking, like, genuinely every time I was like, right, Erin, you've got one last chance to try and do this. Then I just kind of like shut it down, and then like, no, at the end of the day, I've still had a good year, whether I run this time or I don't run this time. Like, getting in your mind that an objective time doesn't define who you are as an athlete. So I think that's an important thing to come back to.
In the races that you run, there is a lot of hustle and bustle, people trying to get position, starting quite quick to maybe get to the front and dictate the pace and everything else. How hard is it to cope with that possibility of getting boxed in, getting tripped up, not getting in a great position, but also knowing that you possibly, from a physical point of view, are in a really good place? How are you managing the race tactics when, there's elbows flying, there's the spikes going everywhere, people are not concerned, they're just looking to get their position? How are you dealing with that hustle and bustle?
Yeah, it's really hard. Like, it's honestly probably the least, you just wish you could be on a start line and the person who's in the best physical shape wins, or I'm going to run exactly what I'm capable of and nothing's going to get in my way. So it is really hard to try and not get involved in anything, and not, because that is ultimately what can just disrupts. Obviously, a lot of it is inevitable and you can't help it, but when you run a clean race, it's so much, even if you're slightly on the outside of lane one, it's so much better than if you're in the inside lane one and get tripped or get boxed. So I guess the race tactics kind of depends on each race and the level of it. So the first few races I did in the season, they were a bit lower level. So there was maybe like 2 or 3 of us that were going for it, and then there wasn't really much fighting or anything for positions. So then in situations like that, like, I know one person's going to go for it, I can just sit on them and then see what we've got in the end. But then as I started getting into these more stacked races, it's like you really have to think a lot more during it. And I guess when I spoke earlier about the Diamond League where I fell over before the line, that was me just not thinking properly about the tactics of that specific race. So they definitely change depending on who's in it, what they've ran, where the race is, what level it's at. So it is hard to plan for, and then people can just go out really hard and then come back to you. They can go out really hard and stay ahead of you. There's so much you cannot control at all, but I think it's just about focusing on where you want to be and not on other people.
It's interesting you say that, because as a layperson looking in, I would think 800, 1500 is quite structured. As an athlete, you know what your strengths are. And when I watch races, the commentators are saying this person is doing this, is what they generally do. They'll go out quick and try and hold on or whatever. You're saying there that, so at the times it is unplanned and unstructured. Do you actively look at who is in the race that you're going to be in a week's time and think, right, what are the tactics this person might do? Do I need to get on this person's shoulder? Or is it just, no, it's about me, what I'm bringing to the table, what I'm bringing to that race that is the important thing, not having to worry about someone else going out too fast because they might not do it? Are you trying to be proactive in thinking about those race tactics, or is it, no, this is what I'm bringing to the race?
Yeah, I definitely do try to be proactive in the race tactics and look at who is in the race and what their strengths might be. So if there's a race and I know someone is a front runner normally, then I'm like, great, I don't have to, I can just like try and sit behind them here and just see like what happens. But yeah, it does depend race on race. So the last race I had that was my last chance to run the world qualifying time, it was quite a lot of us on the start line. So I think there was 19 people on the start line. So that has a lot of potential to get quite elbowy and collisions and things like that. So what I did before that race is I kind of like picked out 3 people that I knew who run consistently. They don't normally fade. They stay strong to the end, who were just like on paper and slightly better than me. So I kind of picked out those 3, and I was like, as long as one of the 3 of them is within your sights at all times, or you're like relatively near, then you're probably going to do quite well. Or if you can just hang on to, because the chances are out the 3 is like someone could go backwards, but the other 2 like are surely going to stay strong to the end. Like surely the 4 of us aren't coming last. So that was kind of my tactic there, and I think it worked quite well because it made me concentrate a lot during the race and not just let the race happen to me, because I had people who were ahead of me to just kind of like focus on. And then I ended up running the qualifying time, so it actually did work out in the end. And the 3 of them did finish ahead of me, which is fine. But my goal was to run the qualifying time, and I did, so I was really happy with that.
My next question might seem strange, that you've just said you ran the qualifying time and that's all that mattered, and possibly it is. But thinking about that mental toll of race tactics, is that something you consider where you've said there, right, I need to sit on this person and kind of work with them, I know they're going to go out quick? What happens if that's not the case and they adopt a different strategy? And what about the mental toll where you have to try and change your tactics mid-race and it doesn't quite happen? Is that something that does play into your thinking, your planning, your self-reflection, or is it about, no, this is the time I want to go in with, that's all that matters, race tactics can come another day?
Probably depends on my goal for the race and what I'm trying to get out of it. So say if I'd ran that qualifying time in May, then the rest of the races of the season, my aim would be to finish as high as possible rather than to run the qualifying time. So whereas this year it was about trying to run time, so then if I'm going into a race, like, I said the first couple of races I did, they were more low-key, they had less people in them, so the chances of it really slowing down and you not running, because all it takes is for one person to not go for it, and then you're not going to run a fast time if you run behind them. So for that race, I had an A and a B plan. Like, if this person goes for it, great, just sit on them. and then try and come past them at the end. But if they don't go for it, I'm going to need to take it on because I don't want to come all the way here to just be like jogging around almost, and then end up like I might finish third instead of first. But the time was more important for me then, whereas now I would just try and race because I've got this qualifying time. I can just race it and think about trying to finish as high as possible rather than the time. So yeah, it just depends on who you are and what stage of the year it is, I guess.
And thinking about those connotations and race tactics within your environment, is there someone kind of role modelling that behaviour and saying, right guys, we need to sit down and do a reflection on this race? Or when someone comes back from a meeting, are you talking about those types of things? Is someone role modelling that behaviour of, this is what I thought, this is what I did, this is the outcome, let's talk about it, let's all learn from each other?
Yeah, I do think like we wouldn't sit down and formally talk about that, but maybe in, say, if someone in the training group has been somewhere, and I watch the race, I might say like, oh, what was your tactic going in, or how did that pan out? And then they'll maybe talk about it then, because it is interesting even watching from the outside. So I don't watch loads of athletics, but when I do try and pay attention to what everyone's doing and what their tactics are, especially if it's someone I've trained like to just, I don't know, just kind of interesting. So definitely try and learn from people from watching them, and then from if I see them, then talking to them, because when it comes to this part of the year, we actually don't see each other loads because everyone is here, there and everywhere, and could go to training on Saturday and there's 15 people there, or I could go and there's like 3 people. So when everyone's racing and stuff, it does get quite busy, so it's kind of harder to keep up with people and things, but it's exciting watching everyone, definitely.
And thinking about that season where people are left, right and centre, how are you coming up with your goals, whether that's individual or set of group goals with the squad that you train with? At the start of the season, is it you going to your coach and saying, this is what I want to hit? Is it the coach coming to you and saying, Erin, based on this, this and this, I think this is what we should go for? Is it a kind of group collective that people sit down before the season and say, this is where we want to be hitting as a group and whatever? How are you arriving at your season goals to keep that motivation, that performance high?
Yeah, it's pretty individual, or we speak one-on-one with, or Jenny and Trevor kind of got 2 coaches who are in charge of the group. So we'd all sit down with them individually and talk about what we want to do this year. And then from that, it will be like, oh, I think we should do this race and this race to try and achieve that goal. So there are some performance goals they're just so different for different people. We've got such a range of abilities and ages. So there's people who are going to European juniors, then you've got like Keely and Georgia and Sarah who are going to the World Championships. Keely and Georgia are hoping to medal or win. So like everyone's is quite individual and quite different, but Jenny and Trevor definitely have an idea of what they think you can achieve. But as I said, so much can happen and there's so many uncontrollables as well that you can have the goals, but it's definitely something to keep you motivated. Like the running the time for me definitely gave me motivation every race to just like get up and just like do it. So yeah, I guess it's individual for everyone.
And how are you managing those performance expectations? You've said earlier that you wanted to run a certain time to get to the World Championships. And was it at your 6th attempt that you got that time? Is that correct? Yeah. So how are you managing those expectations? Because you would think, right, the first attempt, didn't quite get it. I might get it the next time. How are you managing to keep going for that 4th, that 5th, that 6th race when it's right there in front of you, but you can't quite grasp it just yet. How are you managing, I need to kind of push myself, but there's also an element of realism there as well, especially in such a dynamic distance that you do, the 8 and the 1500?
I think my motivation was probably I just know I can do it. Like there's just something in me that's just like I know I am more than capable of running this time, and I just haven't done it yet. So I know if I just keep going, I'm gonna get there eventually. But as I said, you also have to be at peace with if it doesn't pan out the way you want it to, then that's also okay. And it's not because you're not good enough or because you've not tried hard enough. It's probably something to do with the race or something to do with you got tripped up or the pace at the front wasn't quite quick enough, so it made it a lot harder for you to run a time. So I think it's probably being at peace with, you need, like for me personally, and it was the 6th time, and every single time I was within a second and a half, I think. And then I was getting closer and closer. So I just knew I could do it. But I was also, the last race I had there, over 1500, before I was at peace with, if I don't do this, it doesn't mean I'm a failure. I've still had a good year. And then I think that helps me actually perform better.
And how are you considered as an individual? You've talked about possibly turning up on a Saturday and there's 15 athletes there. You're within a squad of athletes, say 6 to 8, that are really pushing to go to Diamond Leagues, to go to World Championship, to go to Olympics. Is it based purely on times, on kind of positions previously? Is it based on what you are bringing physiological-wise, strength-wise, as an athlete? How, at the start of the season, when the coaches have 20 athletes in front of them, how are you, as Erin, being considered as an individual to bring the best out of you?
Well, Trevor has, so if say we turn up to the track, there's 15 people there. There could be 5 different sessions going on. So it's all quite, it is quite individualised in that way. Like we never all do the same thing. And there's people in the group that I rarely train with because we actually have like 100 runners to 5k. So like obviously I never cross over with the 100 runners, so there'll be the 5k guy never crossing over with her either. So we have a lot of parents who come down to help as well. So yeah, often there's so many sessions going on and different variations of the same thing. So in years gone by, when I've not been able to handle as much running volume, where someone's done 4 sets of something, I've maybe done 3. And then as you progress, Trevor will look and be like, okay, it now seems like Erin can handle a bit more, so she'll do a bit more today. He sends us, we have Excel plans that get sent out at the start of the month, so I can see what all my training is there. And there's kind of generally like a sprinter session, a 400, 800 session, or 800, 1500 session, and then maybe a longer one as well. So whatever. So for me, I'd be doing the 800, 1500 ones, whereas Keely would be doing the 400, 800 ones. So it kind of depends on what your background is and what your strengths are as to what sessions you end up doing. But it is very individualised.
And within those sessions, do you feel you're also challenged mentally, emotionally, intellectually? Because, again, not wishing to be disparaging for your event, you're kind of just running in circles trying to hit certain times. It's not playing football or rugby or even triathlon where you might consider different elements of the sport, different tactics, different ways to break down a defensive system. It might just be, Erin, right, you're running 5 400s at this pace with this much rest. Do you need that intellectual stimulation from your sport, or are you getting that elsewhere?
It probably sounds too simple to say, because a lot of the sessions we do, I'll get 3/4 of the way in and be like, I don't think I can finish this. I feel horrendous. And then that's kind of when you need someone there, or you and yourself need to find something to just try and get through it. So I guess that is quite challenging, or it's not as like often if I'm set times, I'm not necessarily capable of hitting them. So then, or if I do hit them at the start, it means I'm going to pay for it in the end. Or there's times when I've been on the start line, like, oh, like I've got 3/4 of the way through the session, I've been sick, and then I need to get back on the start line. So it's almost like you need to be able to handle things like that, and that's quite challenging in itself. Or I definitely think that's a skill you need to like develop, I guess.
And thinking about the environment itself, let's just say I've started to work with you. What would you like me to bring to the relationship or the environment to help you develop as an athlete, whether that's from a physical point of view? Do you want me standing there with a stopwatch in the data saying, Erin, yeah, you're hitting these times brilliant? Is it during those difficult times where you know I'm on the verge of being sick here, and you know we've all had that lactic acid pit of the stomach feeling? Is that where I need to come in with some kind of psychology or self-talk or kind of mindset training? What would you like me to bring as a coach to that environment to drive your performance forward?
Yeah, probably when it's getting really hard, and when, yeah, as you said, like the lactic acid makes you feel like you're gonna like throw up, then I guess having someone there just telling you that you can do it is probably quite a performance enhancer in itself, because in your head you're like, no, I can't do it. Especially someone who's a coach and knows you well, because there's been times in the past when I've been doing a session and then Trevor's pulled me out of it because I'm just going backwards. So because he's done that in the past, now even if I'm absolutely dying, if he tells me to get on the start line, I'm going to do it, because I know that he knows me and knows what I look like and when I should stop, probably, which it doesn't happen often. But when it does, that's when you know you're having a bad day. So I think someone probably just there telling you that it's fine. Because if I'm in that state and someone's talking to me, I'm probably not going to be replying to them. But like, I can hear what you're saying. So I definitely think that would help me, yeah.
So what I'm hearing there is that there's a lot of trust in that coach-athlete relationship. So based on that, let's say I've just started working with you again, what is one thing you would like me to know about you and you to know about me that would develop that trust quite quickly in the relationship and develop those kind of social bonds, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think for you to know about me, if it was just in a training session, probably like I'm only going to stop, or I'll do probably whatever you tell me, if that makes sense. I would probably do exactly, I almost have like when I'm in a training session, I have blind trust in the coach anyway. Like I think I've just always done that. Like I don't know if that would take time, or if someone just came straight in, if I'd just be like, yeah, I'll just do what you say. I don't know. Like I'll only stop if you tell me to do this many reps, I'll do it. I'm trying to think for something like I would know about you. Probably that you've got a good knowledge of what I'm doing. And that would definitely help me trust someone a lot more, because as I said, it's almost like with athlete coach, you have to trust in them that much, otherwise it just like won't work, really.
And how is that conversation starting? Are you wanting me to kind of come up and demonstrate that understanding, or are you going to try and kind of test me with some little bit of question? How do you see that relationship developing?
Probably from just watching, or just over time, I guess. I feel like you can tell pretty quickly if someone understands what they're looking at and what they're doing, just from like comments and like analysis from the training and things like that. I think probably just from observing what you're saying and things like that.
So bringing it to your performance now, it's race day. talk me through what that looks like, and do you have any kind of routines that you need to go through to kind of mentally and physically prepare? What does your race day look like?
Yeah, there's definitely some routines that I just have, probably just for the sake of having, to just try and give some, because we race in different places all the time, so it's kind of important to maintain as much familiarity almost as you can. So on the day of a race, it feels like all our races are in the evening, so you often have the whole day to kind of kill almost. So I'd probably maybe go for a jog in the morning, like maybe like 10 minutes or something, and come back, maybe go and get a coffee, whatever city it's in. And then I kind of have a bit of a routine with getting ready and things like that. So I'll straighten my hair, do my makeup, and then get ready kind of maybe an hour before I need to leave. And then often we're all staying in the same hotel, so a bus will take us to the stadium. And on the way there, I'll probably just do whatever I feel like. So if it's listening to music, or sometimes I read my book if I'm like really into something, to just kind of, again, just try and stay relaxed but still focused, obviously, on what I'm doing. And then when I get there, I don't know if you have this and take this in cycling as well, but we have bicarb. We started taking Morton bicarb. So I normally have that 2 hours before the race, and that almost feels like it's part of my routine now, because I'm just like, it just reminds me of the race so much. And then I'll do my warm up and things, have a caffeine gel, maybe like 20 minutes before I go into the call room. And then I just have some things that I just have to do on the day. So often the call room is in a different place to where the warm up track is. So I'll put my spikes on, do some warm up strides, and then take my spikes off to go into the call room again, because I'm just like, I just have to put my spikes on in the call room. I don't know why. It just is part of my routine. And then the call room can be 20 minutes, 10 minutes, half an hour. It's just, you can't really control that. And then I'll still just be trying to just like in the call room. And then when I get out onto the track on the start line, that's when my heart starts to go quite fast. And I'm like, right, you need to just focus now. Yeah, it was quite a long explanation.
You make a really good point there, because at times your sport can be offset by possibly the weather, a race going over slightly. You know, when I was in rugby union, I knew the referee was going to knock on the door at this time. I knew I needed the players in the changing room at this time to get changed the shirts and everything. We were very regimented. It's a 3 o'clock kickoff. You know that's going to happen. Where you might be like, all right, there's something happened to you. There's 5 minutes extra. How are you trying to control the controllables in terms of your emotions when you think, right, I need to get up and get myself mentally, physically aroused for this time? Oh, it's going to be 10 minutes more. You can't then just go and read your book and then come back to that same mental, physical state. So, yes, you can't control those things. You can only control your emotions. So what are you trying to do to keep yourself relaxed, keep yourself, trust the process? You know, this is part of the game. 5 minutes more, you know, I'll just have some light jogs or whatever. What are you doing in that probably quite tense environment that everyone else is feeling the same things?
Yeah, it's definitely hard at times, and it is a really intense environment. It's probably like my least favourite part of being an athlete is the call room. It's so intense in there at times, and no one's talking a lot of the time. And you're just like, oh my goodness, I'm so nervous. Like, I don't want to be in here for a minute longer than I have to. But there are a lot of curveballs in athletics, and meets can run late, like easily. I've done a couple where there's been lightning storms, so it's been delayed by, it's 20 minutes, then it's half an hour, then it's 40 minutes. So it's almost like, because I've had so many variations in how far the track is from the hotel, how long the delay is, how long, there's so many different things that have happened to me over the years that I'm quite confident whatever happens, I can cope with it. And say I'm just about to go to the call room and then I find out the race is delayed for 10 minutes, I know what to do because it's something like that's happened before. So I would do something like keep jogging, do a couple more strides, think it's okay. How many times in training have I had to wait an extra 10 minutes for someone and been totally fine? So I think you just have to really back yourself and really trust yourself that because our warm-up, because there's so many variations, it's almost like because we haven't been as regimented, I think it helps me trust more that I don't need to be regimented and the outcome will still be okay.
So you're on the track now, you're on that start line 10, 15 seconds before the gun goes. Where's your focus now?
My focus now is getting off the line probably hard and then seeing where, because a lot of the time as that last race I did with 19 people, it's really hard to predict where you're gonna end up or where you're gonna fall in the pack. So I think probably I'm literally just focused on the first 100 meters and then I just take it from there and just try and focus the whole time.
So just bringing the conversation to a close now, if possible, could you summarise your thoughts on your own athlete journey and possibly provide one piece of advice or guidance to someone listening from a physical aspect, a psychological and a socio-environmental, from your own lived experience that might help someone improve their own performance?
Yeah, I think my journey is, because it's been 16 years basically since I've been doing sport, it's definitely had ups and downs, and athletics has helped me experience some of the highs, but also probably some of the lowest lows that I've had. Even though it's just sport, so in the grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal. But when you put your life and soul into something, that's why you get the highs and the lows, because it's almost like part of your identity. So I've definitely had a lot of ups and downs, but I'm really enjoying the lifestyle I live now, and I'm really glad that I've ended up here. So I'm definitely happy with that. And from advice perspective, I would say physical, probably just, I do think if you just stick at something, it will just click eventually. But I do think if you're a younger athlete, it's important to not do too much too soon, because definitely throughout my years, I've seen so many people fall victim to that, especially because I've done it from a young age. Like, so many people that I used to run with don't do it at all anymore, suffer from overtraining, eating disorders, like Red-S and things like that. So if you're younger, I wouldn't be like, this is all or nothing sort of thing. But definitely, like, just keep doing it and you'll probably be successful. And don't compare yourself too much to other people, I would say. And from a psychological perspective, I guess that's quite individual, but I definitely think it's important to not intertwine your identity fully with athletics. Like, don't make athletics your whole identity, because then when athletics inevitably is not going to go well at some point, it's really, really difficult to then, when it's almost like your whole self, you lose track of your whole self. So it's definitely important to have more things going on, that if athletics doesn't work out, you can step aside from it into a different life and you're fine. And I think from a social environment perspective, is the environment I'm in right now is just really good, but I've been in environments in the past where they're actually kind of very bad, and especially if you're going to be professional and it's going to be your whole life, like, the environment is so important, and if you don't enjoy that, then it's probably going to almost ruin your whole enjoyment of the sport. So I think it's important to surround yourself with people who actually want the best for you and you get on with them socially, so that it's not like everything is about athletics and there's still an ability to switch off and things.
And just before you go, what does the next 4 weeks look like for you?
Oh, I don't know, because basically I have the time for the World Championships, which is in about 3 weeks' time, but I haven't actually been selected yet. There's kind of 4 of us, and Georgia, Hunter Bell, she might double, so it kind of depends on what she's doing. If she doubles, then I won't be able to go because I'm the 4th person, so it will knock me out the team. But if she decides to just do the 800 and not the 8 and the 15, then I'll be able to go. So if she doesn't double, I'll be at the World Championships probably. But if she does double, then I'm going to find some more low-key races and then probably finish my season and towards the start of September, and then we'll probably have like a month off of doing nothing and then gradually get back into it. So there's a bit up in the air right now.
Well, fingers crossed that Georgia just focuses on one event. I wish you the best of luck if that dream comes true, and I'll certainly look out for your times and events coming up.
Thank you.